Good afternoon. Once again, welcome to the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority, focused on the Virgin Islands marketplace. My name is Anthony Weeks. I'm your host, and my co-host is the CEO of the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority, Mr. Percival Sullivan. Percival Clouden.
Thank you.
I was going to call you Sullivan. I don't know where I'm getting that from, but it's our, if you will, third installment. As you know, last week we launched this rather exciting new television program, which really features all of the offering, whether product, service, or program offering of the EDA. Now, today we have some very special folks with us from the EDA. They're from a very specific unit or division of the EDA. And we have the folks from the Enterprise Commission. And with us today we have, I'm sure I pronounced that right. And welcome Ms. Ken to the program.
Thank you so much.
And she is, Ms. Ken is the director of the Enterprise Zone Commission. And then we have Kusa Holloway. She's the Enterprise Zone Specialist on St. Croix. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon.
to the Virgin Islands EDA focused on the VI marketplace.
Thank you.
So Percival,
Yes, sir.
Last week we introduced the leadership, and we gave
Yes.
an overview of the EDA,
Yes.
which was good. I think
Yes,
I watched
I
it
think
several
it was.
times. I'm my toughest critic, so I was looking at how I conducted myself. You're a natural. I just want you to know you're natural at this.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
But before we get into it, I want to, I got a fact sheet, and I think it's important to sort of, at the open, always share this information, because a lot of people don't know this, and I think we should share this information. The EDA, the EDC program, is about 38 years. They've been around for about 38 years. Developed in 1972. They are the approximate breakdown of the industry in which they have, if you will, beneficiaries of the program or companies registered or listed with the EDC program is 35% professional services, 20% accommodation and food services, 19% manufacturing, 26% other, which means financial and insurance, information, etc. When we look at the overall from 1999 to 2007 in terms of the impact analysis of the role of the EDA and EDC program, we're looking at $10.9 billion in gross sales, $540 million in local capital expenditures, $20 million in charitable contributions, 8,300 jobs created, $730 million in taxes paid, 3% of all local businesses, generate over 12% of the gross territorial product, 14% of the total earnings, 17% of local tax revenues, generates about $4 million in value for every $1 million foregone in taxes, 1.8 million in value added, and you have 1.2 million in total earnings and 0.6 million in local tax revenues. Average of 8.4 related local jobs per beneficiary, implementation of a new cost benefit model to help make strategic selection. And just to give you an idea of the general benefits of the EDC program, current EDC benefits include 90% reduction in corporate tax, 90% in reduction in personal income taxes, 6% to 1% reduction on custom duty rate on raw materials imported outside the USA, and 1,005 or 1005 exemption from the excise tax on raw materials, 100% exemption from property taxes, property and gross receipt tax. So I think it's important that the public
Yes.
understand, the impact that your agency is having on this community and the
Yes.
territory's economy. Any comments?
Yes,
from
I think it's imperative that the community understands what we do, why we do what we
Absolutely.
do. And these are some results, coming from our operations over the past 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
It's a very important program for the territory economically wise, because it sustains jobs. We have investments, new dollars coming into the territory. And as you said, we have approximately, that program alone accounts for 8,300 jobs.
Okay.
So it's an important program, and it must be supported, and it must be spoken about nationally and internationally.
Got you. And I'm really glad that you are a co-host to this program, because I'm going to learn a lot from you as well, because I do not profess to know everything there is to know about the EDA and the EDC program.
Likewise.
And today, we're going to focus specifically on the Enterprise Zone Commission.
Yes.
And like you have the EDC program, you have the EZC program, okay? And so what we want to do is, I guess, for the person that is watching this program today, I mean, you have all these different acronyms, EDC, EZC. You know, I like EZC. It means easy, right?
Yeah.
How does the two coexist, and how do they support each other? Why do you need to have both?
Well, the Enterprise Zone focuses on local community development. In other words, trying to, well, first they have established certain areas within the territory as enterprise zones, which are Christiansted, Frederiksted, and Charlotte-Amalie, and Savanne in Charlotte-Amalie. These areas were identified as enterprise zone areas because we saw that there was a development need. And so the enterprise zone was formed. And I will ask Ms. Machina to expand on that and give us the mandate of the enterprise zone.
Before you do, Ms. Ken, in terms of giving us that overall overview of the Economic Zone Commission, I'm looking at a little nice sort of compact brochure that says 5-year strategic plan. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you allow me, I would like to go through them as we have the discussion as to the role of the Economic Zone Commission. For the person, because I guess when we created this program, we wanted to kind of sort of put more emphasis on the local community, and to be able to make sure that the local community understand all of the benefits that are available to them under this program.
Exactly.
So is it safe to say that when we talk about focus on the local community, a lot of what we will be talking about is the Economic Zone Commission?
Yes.
Enterprise Zone Commission,
Enterprise
sorry?
Zone Commission, and the objective of the economic development within the zones.
Okay, so,
and there are tax benefits similar to the EDC benefits that are available in the enterprise zone.
Okay.
And Ms. Machina can expand.
And I noticed on the map it says zone map, Christiansted, Frederiksted, and Savanne. Am I saying that right?
Savanne.
Okay, Savanne. Okay. So those are the 3 main zone, or there are other zones?
Just recently there was an expansion of the zones. So Frederiksted has been expanded from the historic town, just the historic town, to now out to Queen Mary Highway. In St. Thomas, Savanne is now Savanne and Down Street, and we have a new zone called Garden Street and Up Street. So now we have new zones and expanded zones, which really speak to the corridors and the areas that are most distressed within the territory.
Okay, okay. Now, I guess one could think, when they're thinking of the enterprise zone, these are areas that would, like you said, are distressed and need to be rehabilitated, if you will.
Revitalized.
Revitalized.
Yes.
Revitalized. And so with the whole revitalization issue, if one is not, if you're not inside the enterprise zone, do you then move into the zone in order to get benefit, or how does that work?
Well, we don't encourage people to wholesale move from one area to another area, because then we will be creating an issue in that other area as well. We encourage expansion, we encourage new development, we encourage, let's say a person has a company outside of the zone. Perhaps they might want to expand their business or do a sub of that business within the zone. So that is what we encourage, the revitalization, the fixing of buildings within that area.
So you can create a sub?
Yes, absolutely.
Within the zone itself?
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. You have a 5-year strategic plan. It says the Enterprise Zone Strategic Plan mandates that the division work towards improving the following: community aesthetics. Is there a uniform, there are certain municipalities, town, villages on the mainland, they have ordinance and variances that say if you're going to do business, there's a uniform code that has to be adhered to and complied with. Is that the same thing when you think of the enterprise zone? Is that the same set of rules, or is that a separate issue?
It's a separate issue. What we're looking at is to make sure that when you go into a zone, it's physically appealing to you. There is, and what is being worked through by the Department of Planning and Natural Resources right now is a form-based code that will speak to that. Everyone should have, if you have a 2-story building, should have certain things that would be, if they're going to do new construction, within the form that's already there. We're speaking, though, about making sure that the grass is cut, the place is clean, that the buildings are nicely painted, that they are in use. Those are the things we talk about when we talk about community aesthetics. That, you know, places are basically clean and a place that you would want to come home to or to visit. Mm-hmm. So that's what we talk about when we say aesthetics.
Before I proceed, I know that Purcell wanted you to sort of give an overview of your unit and responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Why don't you do that, and then I can then come back and...
Certainly. The Enterprise Zone Commission was originally formed in 1999. We're quite new compared to the other agencies of the authority. And it was formed through a comprehensive economic development strategy, the Virgin Islands CEDS program, which is headed by the Governor of the Virgin Islands. This is a strategy that each community across America puts together in order to say this is where we're going in the economic area. There was a need, and they saw that there were areas within the community that were distressed, and so the enterprise zone was created. It is not federally designated because we did not at the time have the population that would support an enterprise zone, a federally designated enterprise zone. But it does offer tax credits to assist those who are revitalizing their own properties. Our mandate is to revitalize areas that are that were once vital, vibrant communities and neighborhoods that are now considered distressed, as is designated by the Governor of the Virgin Islands. And as the CEO indicated, we have Christiansted and Frederiksted in St. Croix, as well as Savan, Down Street, Garden Street, and Up Street in St. Thomas. There is no, right now, enterprise zone of St. John yet, but certainly there have been suggestions.
Well, this is, it's funny that you mentioned it, because as I'm listening to you, I'm saying, for a person that's watching this broadcast right now, mm-hmm. They're saying to themselves, you know, what qualifies? What is the criteria of an area becoming an enterprise zone? Why just limit it to those areas? Where I am is just as distressed as the next place. So how come my community isn't part of that map?
That's a good question. It's very specific. When you look at enterprise zones or empowerment zones across the nation, you will see that there is, and they're all described by a level of poverty, by a census tract. And so we looked at the census tracts, and looked at the highest level of poverty and made determinations there.
I see.
Certainly there are areas that are distressed, but may not hold the amount of residents living in that community
Right.
that also needs attention. And so the governor right now is looking at doing something that would be along the lines of a commercial zone that would be equal to an enterprise zone, but would be areas that don't, that are not governed by the level of poverty.
I think that makes a lot of sense, in considering the current, economic environment that we're in. That I think any sort of expanded,
mechanism.
Expansion of the program will be a benefit to the community. Now, when we talk about level of poverty, do you have a high concentration of, if you will, public housing within those zones, or no?
We have a level of, yes, public housing, but it was done, we look at poverty in accordance with what the census collects. So it was not necessarily because there were housing projects or...
No, I just threw that in just
Right.
to kind of get a sense when you say poverty, how do you define that? And I'm just, I guess, trying to put my arms around. Is it because those areas have a strong presence of, if you will, public housing type communities?
It's specific to income level. So the Savannah Down Street area has almost equal level of poverty as Frederiksted, almost. There are no housing projects in that area. So no, it has to do with the amount of income that is brought into the household.
Yeah, because the territory, for all intent and purposes, the Virgin Islands is considered a rural community. And when you think of the level of poverty in the United States, a lot of the poverty is concentrated in the rural area. So it's kind of interesting that, when you think of the Virgin Islands as a rural community, you kind of figured the whole entire territory is an enterprise zone. It's an enterprise zone, if you will. But, that's just, I'm just being silly when I say that.
Not by definition,
Yeah,
but yes.
yeah. Let's pull in Ms. Holloway. She is the specialist for St. Croix. Now, that sounds dangerous. Specialist. What does that mean exactly?
That basically means that I manage the enterprise zones for St. Croix, which is Christiansted and Frederiksted, implementing the projects, managing special projects, grant programs, and also the tax credit program for St. Croix.
Okay, wow, that's quick one. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Co-host, in terms of?
Well,
I see you have a cheat sheet that you didn't share with me, so I'm gonna defer to you to make sure that you make us look really good. Like we know what we're talking about here.
Well, KUSA is also involved in the tongue plans.
Right.
Frederiksted had
Four.
four tongue plans.
Four.
Four tongue
Maybe.
plans.
That's like the Constitution.
and we are now combining, taking all the good from all four and coming up with one single tongue plan for Frederiksted. And we're going to have to do that for Christiansted and Savannah also.
But why
So
four?
you may
But
want
why
to-
four? Why do you
Well,
need
it-
four?
Well, what happened was, over the years, I found town plans going back as far as probably 1966 or something like that. Frederiksted people have been very progressive in knowing what they've wanted for their town, the way they've wanted it seen. But the town plans have not been implemented. Some areas of each town plan were implemented to a certain extent, but then it was put on a shelf, and it just and then they went on to a next committee and the next committee to create one. So what we've done, instead of recreating the wheel, since Frederiksted was so further ahead than rest of the towns, Christiansted has no town plan since it was originally built.
You mean Zippo, zero?
Zero, nothing. Savannah, same thing. From the time they built it, that was it. That was the only town plan. That was in 17 or 1600s.
Would it be fair to say that's because of cohesion? They're all on the same page, if you will?
I guess so. I maybe so. Yeah. But with Frederiksted, they were very proactive in trying to always revitalize their town and bring back something there. So what we did was we pulled out all the implementable ideas out of those plans and said, okay, we think this can still work. this can still work. And what we did was we brought a round table of stakeholders, our town, Frederiksted, FEDA, some community members, and said, okay, do you think this is still going to work? Do these ideas still reign true to what the community wants for Frederiksted? Not enterprise zone, not the government, but what the community wants for Frederiksted. So, and that's how the plan kind of took shape and form. So,
yeah. When you talk about the stakeholders in these enterprise zones, could you give us an idea of who some of these strategic partners are?
Sure.
In these enterprise zones?
Our stakeholders in Frederiksted are our town, Frederiksted, and Frederiksted Economic Development Association, FEDA. And the reason why those two stakeholders were chosen was because they're established stakeholders in nonprofit organizations within Frederiksted community. They're very active. They have a fan base, not a fan, but they have great community connections. So they are basically like our connection to the community. They can tell us, okay, well, this is what the community is really asking for, and then we can advocate on that behalf.
You have, and this is a question for both Ms. Ken and Holloway, you have a historical society. Are they part of this process? Are we looking, when we talk about revitalization, are we talking about looking to maintain, sustain that historical look, or are we talking about kind of sort of detracting from that in any way possible?
There's a Historic Preservation Commission.
Yeah.
We work very closely with that division because there is something of value within these historic towns that I think is important to maintain. Whether we move towards doing, and this was something that we spoke with the community about, it's in one of our newsletters. We have a newsletter called In the Zone, and we did a survey about what would you put in between those two buildings. And we asked the people of the community, you know, there's an empty space, what would you do in between? And most of the community said that they would prefer to have something that looked like the rest of the historic buildings, but that had the efficiencies of the things they required in order to live in a modern world. And so, you know, we continue, and Historic Preservation, the Historic Preservation Commission continues to evolve and look at new ideas and see where things would work in that light. The value is that people all around the world are traveling to destinations where there is a historic component to it. People travel to cemeteries. People travel to historic towns, and they want to see these things. Why would we get rid of ours, or demean, or take away or detract from the thing, the jewel that we have here?
You know, often you hear so much about the EDC program. You don't hear a lot about the EZC program. Okay, as the upper level management of the authority, what's the correlation between the board's position, its policy, and what role does that play in terms of determining what programs are available to be used in the enterprise zone, if you will, implementation?
Well, there's a enterprise zone board within the structure.
Oh, so there's a board as well.
There's
within the
board,
oh, really?
yeah.
I didn't really know that.
Yes, within the EDA, and Mrs. Ken brings the projects, grants applications, and the plans to the board for approval, and from there it's disseminated and implemented.
So you serve like the master planner, if you will? Is that a fair?
I'm the person that provides information, and the board makes the determination, certainly. The difference between the EDC program and Enterprise Zone program is, first of all, as you indicated before, the Economic Development Commission program is much older. It's the granddaddy of programs within the EDA, along with the lending program. Enterprise Zone is rather new and has just really come into life. I have to say, though, that with CUSA working on the Frederiksted plan, there is a whole another set of tax benefits that will come into play. So right now, Enterprise Zone offers 25% 100% of anything you spend in the revitalization of your building into tax credits. So you can use that for income tax, to deal with income tax or gross receipt tax liabilities. And it will also hold your property tax at bay to the point where you originally started. But with the PLAN program, there's a whole other set of tax exemptions. With the PLAN program, once a plan has been adopted by the board and accepted by the governor of the Virgin Islands, the businesses that have been approved within that plan can possibly get 90% exemption on your corporate income tax, 90% exemption on gross receipt taxes, and 90% exemption on property taxes. This is important because this can speak to retail organizations that where EDC, you're not eligible for retail, right? You can do manufacturing, you can do hotel, but in the enterprise zone, if it's a type of business that that community wants, then we can give those types of benefits once they rehabilitate the building and move that business in.
So the board has given a 5-year strategic plan, which kind of gives you an overview, an outline of community aesthetics,
Roadmap, yes.
public safety and crime prevention, education, job training and entrepreneurship, funding, infrastructure, housing and neighborhood development, business development, plan implementation. Those are the, if you will, main areas of the 5-year strategic plan. We call it a map, if you will.
Roadmap, yes.
A roadmap. Good, good. And you talked about an overview of the benefits. And if I can just kind of recap some of it, you said you talk about a non-refundable gross receipt tax credit, income tax credit, new building construction equal to 25% of the actual value expended, non-refundable gross receipt tax credit / income tax credit. Number 2, rehabilitation equal to 25% of the actual values expended. Number 3, non-refundable gross receipt tax credit, income tax credit, income tax credit, machinery and equipment equal to 10% expenditure.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
If you have, if you've fixed a building and you move your business in there and you need to buy machinery to run that business, we will give you 10% tax credits for the machinery that you use in your business.
Wow,
that
nice.
you've purchased.
That's good. That's good. Number 4, we talk about gross receipt tax rate reduction to 3% for gross receipt derived from enterprise zone business.
Yes. That's a great thing in this, because right now I know the tax, the gross receipt tax percent is now 5%. For our beneficiaries, it stays at 3%. So that's a 2% savings every time they have to pay gross receipts.
And you would note that all of these initiatives are geared towards small business and the nurturing of our small businesses to maintain themselves, to grow and expand, and employ our local residents. So it's true economic development initiatives.
Absolutely. Real quick, we only have a couple minutes left. Number 5, income tax credit, employment of a one-time non-refundable $500 income tax credit for every job created for VI residents.
Yes, that's a permanent full-time job. I have to say though that this seems like it's only for businesses. In our mixed-use community, it's also for residential buildings as well.
Okay. Finally, number 6, property tax credit against tax imposed equal increase in property taxes assessed due to renovation, rehabilitation, or construction of property. Real quickly, how can anyone find out more about the Enterprise Zone Commission activities?
Well, in St. Croix, you can call 773-6499 and speak to Kusa Holloway. In St. Thomas, 7714-1700 and speak to Raheem Smith. Okay.
And in closing, let me just say that eligibility, we look at business with a valid business license. Number 2, invest at least $10,000 in a business. 3, be a resident of the Virgin Islands. 4, be the actual investor in the enterprise zone. Number 5, meet the standard of ecological compatibility. Number 6, employ at least 2 residents of the Virgin Islands. Number 7, comply with all federal and territorial laws. Number 8, agree in writing to abide by, what is this, 10, 11, and 10, 13, whatever that is. I'm going to get into that. Well, folks, I want to thank you for being part of this program today. And you brought some very valuable information to again, some of the exciting things that are available at the EDA. And I want to thank you, Ms. Ken and Ms. Holloway, for being part of the program.
Thank you.
And of course, my co-host, the CEO, Percival Clouden. This is the end of the, if you will, the first segment, first half. Coming up next, we're going to then have the roundtable discussion segment here on the Virgin Islands EDA, focus on the Virgin Islands marketplace. I'm Anthony Weeks. We'll be right back.